What if I told you the most dangerous criminals in history didn't carry guns? They carried spreadsheets. They didn't break into homes. They were invited in, trusted with life savings, retirement funds, and futures. In this video, you'll enter a world where billions vanish, victims never see justice, and the criminals look just like everyone else. Stay until the end, because one name in this story didn't just destroy money. They destroyed faith in the entire system. Backhand index pointing right, subscribe now, because this is not just crime. This is power, deception, and the illusion of legitimacy. The crimes that don't look like crimes. When most people think of true crime, they imagine bloodstains, police tape, and sirens in the night. But financial crime operates in silence. No screams, no crime scenes, just empty bank accounts, and lives permanently altered. Financial criminals don't need violence. They use trust as their weapon. And in many cases, by the time the truth is uncovered, the damage is irreversible. The perfect crime in plain sight. Financial criminals thrive because they understand one thing better than anyone else. People don't question success. Luxury offices, expensive suits, private jets, these aren't red flags. They're camouflage. Victims assume, if they're this successful, they must be legitimate. And regulators? They often assume the same. This is how some of the largest crimes in human history happened right in front of everyone. The man who stole $65 billion without a mask. Let's begin with the name that defines financial crime, Bernard Madoff. For decades, he was seen as a genius, a Wall Street legend, former NASDAQ chairman, trusted by banks, celebrities, charities, even governments. His investment returns were uncannily consistent, too consistent, but no one wanted to ask questions because everyone was making money, until they weren't. The lie that funded a lifestyle. Behind closed doors, there were no investments, no secret trading strategy, no financial brilliance, just a classic Ponzi scheme, new money paying old investors. At its peak, Madoff's fraud reached $65 billion, making it the largest financial scam in history. Victims lost retirement savings, college funds, entire family legacies. Some lost hope, some lost their lives. The fallout, nobody escaped. When the truth finally surfaced in 2008, the world was already collapsing from a financial crisis. Madoff didn't just steal money, he destroyed trust in the financial system itself. Charities shut down, families were torn apart. Survivors asked the same question: how did nobody see this? The answer is uncomfortable. People did see it. They just didn't want to believe it. The new face of financial crime. You might think crimes like this belong to the past. They don't. They've simply evolved. Enter a new generation of criminals. Younger, more tech-savvy, and operating at internet speed. Sam Bankman-Fried. He was called a visionary, a billionaire before 30, the face of crypto's future. His company, FTX, promised innovation, transparency, and trust. What it delivered was one of the most devastating financial collapses of the modern era. The illusion of genius. Bankman-Fried didn't look like a criminal. He wore t-shirts, spoke softly, donated millions to charity. But behind the scenes, customer funds were allegedly misused, diverted, and gambled away. When FTX collapsed, billions disappeared overnight. Investors woke up to zeros. And the crypto world learned a brutal lesson. Technology doesn't eliminate greed, it amplifies it. Why financial criminals get away for so long. Here's the disturbing truth. Financial criminals often operate longer than violent offenders. Why? Because victims blame themselves. Crimes are complex and slow to detect. Regulators lack resources. Offenders hide behind legal language. And by the time authorities catch up, the money is gone, hidden in offshore accounts, converted into assets, or vanished entirely. The human cost we don't talk about. These crimes aren't victimless. They cause depression, homelessness, family breakdowns, suicide. But unlike violent crime, the damage is invisible, which makes it easier to ignore. What this series will expose. In the next modules, we'll uncover the psychology of financial criminals, how victims are selected and manipulated, why regulators repeatedly fail, the cases that changed financial law forever, and the criminals who still haven't been caught. Some of these names will shock you. Others are still walking free. She promised to revolutionize medicine. She raised hundreds of millions. She stood shoulder to shoulder with presidents, generals, and billionaires. And it was all built on a lie. In this chapter, you'll see how one of the most celebrated innovators of the 21st century turned deception into a billion-dollar illusion, and why wanting to believe can be more dangerous than ignorance. Stay with me, because this crime didn't just fool investors, it fooled the world. When vision becomes a weapon, financial crime doesn't always look like greed. Sometimes it looks like hope. Hope for better healthcare. Hope for innovation. Hope that a single breakthrough can change millions of lives. And that hope can be exploited. Few cases prove this more chillingly than the rise and fall of a company once valued at $9 billion, despite never delivering a working product. The Silicon Valley darling. Her story began with an idea that sounded too good to question. What if a single drop of blood could diagnose hundreds of diseases? It was simple, elegant, revolutionary, and it belonged to Elizabeth Holmes, a Stanford dropout who quickly became the face of innovation. She dressed in black turtlenecks, lowered her voice to sound authoritative, and sold the image of a visionary decades ahead of her time. Her company was called Theranos, the power of belief over proof. Theranos wasn't built on science, it was built on storytelling. Holmes didn't just pitch technology, she pitched a future. Investors weren't shown working machines, they were shown confidence. And it worked. Theranos attracted former U.S. Secretaries of State, military leaders, billionaire investors, major retail partnerships. No one wanted to be the skeptic who didn't get it. The red flags everyone ignored. Inside Theranos, the reality was very different. Employees were siloed. Questions were discouraged. Data was hidden. Machines routinely failed. Results were unreliable. And in many cases, Theranos secretly used traditional lab equipment, the very thing they claimed to replace. Why didn't this stop the company? Because questioning Theranos meant questioning progress itself. The cost of silence. This wasn't just financial fraud. Real patients received inaccurate results. Some were told they were healthy when they weren't. Others were told they were sick when they weren't. Medical decisions were made on false data. Lives were put at risk, not by a gun, but by a lie wrapped in ambition. The whistleblowers who refused to stay quiet. Every major financial crime has a moment when the truth tries to surface. At Theranos, that moment came from insiders, scientists and employees who realized the technology simply didn't work. But speaking up came at a cost. Threats of lawsuits, career destruction, relentless intimidation. The company fought truth with fear. When journalism became justice, the illusion finally cracked when investigative journalism stepped in. Carefully verified reports exposed, fabricated demonstrations, misleading investor presentations, dangerous medical practices. Once the story went public, the collapse was swift. Partnerships dissolved, valuation vanished, and the next Steve Jobs narrative unraveled in real time. The trial that shattered the myth. Elizabeth Holmes didn't disappear quietly. She stood trial in one of the most watched financial crime cases in recent history. The defense argued she believed in the vision. Prosecutors argued belief does not excuse deception. The verdict sent a powerful message. Innovation does not place you above the law. Why this case matters more than money. Theranos wasn't just about lost investments. It exposed a dangerous truth. In industries driven by hype, credibility can replace evidence. And when credibility goes unchecked, fraud doesn't need secrecy. It needs applause. The pattern emerging. By now, a pattern is clear. A bold promise. An image of genius. Powerful backers. Suppressed dissent. Catastrophic collapse. This isn't an isolated case. It's a formula. And in the next module, we'll explore a criminal who used charisma, luxury, and social media to steal billions. while convincing victims they were smarter than everyone else. He didn't hide in the shadows. He didn't wear a suit. He didn't act like a criminal. He slept on a beanbag, wore shorts to billion-dollar meetings, and told the world he wanted to give his fortune away. But behind the image of a humble genius was one of the largest financial collapses in modern history, one that erased billions overnight. This is the story of how trust, hype, and unchecked power created a disaster no one saw coming until it was too late. The boy wonder of crypto. At just 30 years old, Sam Bankman-Fried was being called the future of finance. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't polished. And that's exactly why people trusted him. In a world of excess, Sam looked different. Messy hair, casual clothes, awkward demeanor. He didn't feel like a billionaire. He felt like one of us. FTX, the exchange that promised safety. Sam founded FTX, a cryptocurrency exchange marketed as secure, transparent, built by traders, for traders. At a time when crypto felt risky, FTX positioned itself as the responsible alternative. Celebrities endorsed it. Sports arenas carried its name. Politicians accepted donations. FTX wasn't just a company, it was a seal of approval, the illusion of control. Behind the scenes, the reality was chaos. FTX was deeply entangled with Sam's private trading firm, Alameda Research. Customer funds, meant to be protected, were quietly funneled into risky bets. There were no proper audits, no real separation of assets, no meaningful oversight. But from the outside, everything looked fine. And in financial crime, appearances can be lethal. The cult of intelligence. Sam wasn't selling crypto. He was selling genius. He spoke about effective altruism, long-term ethics, saving humanity. Investors didn't just believe in FTX, they believed in him. And that belief created blind spots. When warning signs appeared, they were dismissed as complex crypto stuff, market volatility, misunderstood innovation. No one wanted to be the person who didn't understand the future. The cracks begin to show. The collapse didn't start with a bang. It started with whispers. A leaked balance sheet raised questions about Alameda's finances and how dependent it was on FTX's own token. Confidence evaporated in hours. Users rushed to withdraw funds. But the money wasn't there. The moment the world realized. Within days, FTX froze withdrawals. What followed was panic. Billions in customer assets vanished. Employees were locked out of systems. Investors scrambled for answers. Sam went from media darling to global headline. Overnight, FTX filed for bankruptcy. And one truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't a market crash. This was misuse of trust on a massive scale. Victims beyond numbers. Financial crime stories often focus on numbers. But the real damage was human. Families lost life savings. Small businesses collapsed. People trusted a platform that promised safety. Many victims weren't wealthy investors. They were ordinary people who believed the system had safeguards. Didn't. Arrest and aftermath. Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. The image shattered. The beanbag wasn't quirky anymore. The shorts weren't relatable. The "I'll give it all away" promise rang hollow. The narrative flipped from genius to cautionary tale. Why this case changed financial crime forever. FTX proved something terrifying. You don't need secrecy to commit massive fraud. You just need complexity, credibility, and people afraid to question success. This wasn't about hacking or loopholes. It was about unchecked trust. The pattern deepens. By now, the pattern is undeniable. A revolutionary promise. A charismatic leader. Institutional backing. Minimal oversight. Sudden collapse. From Silicon Valley to crypto, the method evolves, but the outcome stays the same. What comes next is even darker. In the next module, we'll examine a criminal who didn't just steal money. They stole time, hope, and identity, targeting victims who trusted them with their futures. This next story isn't about billionaires. It's about everyday people who lost everything. For decades, people trusted him with everything. Their savings, their retirements, their children's futures. He didn't promise riches overnight. He promised stability. And that's why, when the truth came out, it wasn't just money that vanished. It was entire lives. The man everyone trusted. If financial crime had a face, it would be Bernard Madoff. He wasn't a flashy outsider. He wasn't a reckless gambler. He was Wall Street royalty, former chairman of NASDAQ, respected by banks, trusted by charities, foundations, and families alike. If Madoff handled your money, you felt safe. That was the trap. The scheme that didn't look like a scam. Unlike obvious frauds, Madoff's operation was quiet. No wild promises, no aggressive marketing, no sudden jackpots, just steady, consistent returns year after year. That consistency became his strongest weapon. People stopped asking questions because he's never failed. And when doubt disappears, fraud thrives. A crime built on exclusivity. Madoff didn't beg for investors. He rejected them. Being allowed in felt like an honor. Entire social circles revolved around him. Country clubs, religious communities, charitable organizations. Trust spread not through ads but through relationships. And once trust becomes social, it becomes almost impossible to break. The illusion of wealth. Behind the scenes, there were no investments, no complex strategies, no secret formulas, just money from new clients paying old ones. A classic Ponzi scheme, scaled to an unprecedented level. Billions of dollars moved through a single account. No meaningful oversight caught it. Why? Because no one believed someone so respected could be lying. The collapse that shattered everything. When the financial crisis hit, investors wanted their money back. And suddenly, the illusion collapsed. There wasn't enough cash. There never was. Madoff confessed to his sons, who turned him in. The scale of the crime stunned the world. An estimated $65 billion gone. The human cost. This wasn't just a financial story. This was a human catastrophe. Retirees lost everything. Charities shut down overnight. Families fractured under guilt and blame. Some victims took their own lives. Others worked until death because retirement was no longer possible. This wasn't theft. It was erasure. The sentence that couldn't undo the damage. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison, the maximum allowed. But no sentence could restore what was lost. Trust in financial institutions collapsed. Communities were permanently scarred. The damage rippled across generations. Why this crime still haunts the world. Madoff's case changed how we understand financial crime. Proved. Fraud doesn't need complexity. Respectability can be camouflage. And the most dangerous criminals don't look dangerous at all. He didn't exploit greed. He exploited belief. The pattern reaches its peak. Look at the pattern now. Authority, trust, silence, collapse, irreversible harm. From innovation to crypto to legacy finance, the story repeats. Different faces, same outcome. The final question. If someone like Madoff could deceive the world for decades, what does that say about the systems meant to protect us? And more importantly, who's next? By now, you've seen the lies. You've seen the money vanish. You've seen lives destroyed without a single weapon. So here's the real question. If these criminals were exposed, why do financial crimes keep happening? The answer is darker than you think, and it explains why anyone can become the next victim. The hidden thread connecting every financial crime. At first glance, these criminals look nothing alike. Different industries, different personalities, different eras. But beneath it all, they share the same blueprint. Not greed, not intelligence. Psychology, the illusion of certainty. Every major financial criminal sells one thing above all else. Certainty. They promise predictable returns, revolutionary breakthroughs, stability in chaos. And humans crave certainty, especially during uncertain times. That's when trust becomes a weapon. Why smart people fall for it. One of the biggest myths about financial crime is that victims are naive. They're not. Victims are often educated, successful, experienced. But intelligence doesn't protect against emotional manipulation. In fact, smart people are more likely to rationalize red flags instead of confronting them. Authority is the perfect disguise. Notice the pattern: prestigious boards, famous endorsements, government connections, media praise. Authority lowers skepticism. If everyone important believes in something, questioning it feels risky socially and professionally. And silence keeps fraud alive. The role of the crowd. No major financial crime survives alone. It survives through social proof, group validation, fear of missing out. People don't want to be left behind. Criminals know this. They don't chase victims. They let victims chase them. When systems fail together. Perhaps the most disturbing truth is this: most of these crimes could have been stopped early, but regulators hesitated. Whistleblowers were ignored. Institutions trusted reputations over evidence. Financial crime thrives in the gaps between responsibility. Everyone assumes someone else is watching. Why these crimes will never stop? As long as there is complexity, people don't understand. Authority, people don't question. And profit, people don't want to miss. Financial criminals will exist. They adapt faster than laws. And they don't need secrecy anymore, just credibility. The real cost isn't money. Money can be recovered. Trust cannot. Every major financial crime leaves behind fear of investing, broken communities, generational trauma. People stop believing not just in markets but in systems meant to protect them. That damage lasts longer than any sentence. The question you should ask now, after everything you've seen in this series, ask yourself, who do I trust with my future? What am I afraid to question? And would I recognize fraud if it looked respectable? Because the most dangerous crimes don't feel dangerous. They feel safe. Why this channel exists? True crime isn't just about what happened. It's about why it worked. And if you understand that, you're already harder to deceive. If this series opened your eyes even a little, backhand index pointing right, subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't just tell crime stories. We break down the psychology behind them so you're never the easiest target in the room. New episodes every week. Real cases. No hype, just truth.